all I remember about All Things is that I kept being asked whether I was going to direct an episode like David had, and I kept saying no. And then all of a sudden I thought, hang on, maybe I have an idea. And the idea was based on a Roald Dahl short story. There was an image from a Roald Dahl short story where the main character in the story walks down the street, and as he's passing a sign for a bed and breakfast, he's looking for a place to stay. And then all of a sudden he stops and he turns around and he looks up behind him and he sees a sign swinging for a bed and breakfast. Now that story goes on a very different path, involving scientists being stuffed alive, but maybe not alive, but stuffed. But for some reason that image always stuck with me, and it was the entryway for the story of All Things. I don't know why, but that's the image that started. And so when I thought I might have an idea, I just kind of started writing, and I ended up literally at 3 o'clock in the morning, wrote the outline for that episode. And I don't know where any of it came from. I don't, the relationship with her ex-teacher and all that, it just kind of came out on the page. But then, after I started working on it, I presented the outline to Chris and said, I have this idea and I might want to direct it. And he said, well, write it first and then I'll tell you whether you can direct it. And, which was right. And so I started working on it, and then as I was working on it, and Frank was my point person on it, we realized that there wasn't actually really very much of a sci-fi element to it, and we needed something different. So I had this scene where this woman had saved Scully from being run over, or something had happened.
Getting hit by a tractor trailer, I think.
Exactly. And so it was either Frank or Chris's idea to expand her character into something else. That was a long answer to your question. Can I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi. Got red hair?
Yes, totally naturally, too. I totally didn't just copy Scully's hair. That'd be crazy. So you were Scully for nearly a decade, and I'm wondering, what was the most important lesson that you feel like you learned from her character and her story?
Very early on, I was having trouble with lines. And I can't remember how far into which season it was. It was probably in the first season. I don't know how far into it, but there was a scene where I had to stand in front of a whole bunch of male police officers and give them orders. And I must have done like 20 takes or something, and it was mostly because I was intimidated. I didn't feel like I was strong enough in myself to carry that off, and I was judging myself intensely. And after that, Bob Goodwin came to me and he said, look, you're going to have to do something about these lines because it's costing us a lot of time and money, and if you can't deal with it, you're going to have to look for another job. And so I worked on it harder, etc., etc. But I think what also started to happen is I started to need to find a place in myself that felt strong enough to be able to be all aspects of who the character was. And I think that happened very slowly over time. But and when it first started, actually it pains me to see any of those scenes because I'm very cocky and kind of sure of myself. There's one scene in particular where I'm sitting in a rust-colored suit and Mulder and somebody else comes in and I'm giving them some information about what I've just found out, and man, I could slap myself upside the head. I'm so cocky. It just wasn't the right, and I think by doing it wrong a whole bunch of times, and being in that position over and over again where I had to, be forthright and grounded and come from a place of inner strength that gradually I started to gather that inner strength myself.
Thank you. Great answer.
Thank you.
Great hair.